Frights, camera, action. Hey everyone, welcome to Princess of Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with the final movie of our August movie week. For those of you who are new to the channel, just checking out for this movie, if you don't know what's going on, at the end of every month, we have an entire week of movie reactions. We normally have them on Saturdays and Sundays, but during this week, we have them Monday through Friday instead. And this month's theme for the movies were comic book movies, but not necessarily superhero movies. And we're ending that off on Tales from the Crypt, the 70s movie. I have to specify that because there are a couple other Tales from the Crypt movies that we actually already reacted to. Bordello of Blood and The Demon Knight. And so now we're getting to the original Tales from the Crypt movie. And yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see like what this entails. If I'm remembering right, Tales from the Crypt is typically a anthology kind of thing. Like each episode is its own story and all, sort of like Goosebumps and whatnot. Unless there's like a two-parter or whatever. But I assume then that a movie would be just like a bigger version of that, like a higher budget version of that. So I'm assuming we're not going to get like multiple stories unless there's some kind of like framing device thing like other movies we've reacted to have had, like VHS. I'm thinking more it's going to be like, it's going to, I feel, be closer to Bordello of Blood or Demon Knight, where it's just a singular story and it just focuses on that. But I might be wrong. I don't know. Obviously, I expect the movie to be bookended by the Crypt Keeper, like introducing the movie and then like closing us out afterwards. And otherwise, I don't know. I don't know what to expect from this. I'm definitely interested, though. The previous movies we reacted to, which technically were later, they took place, or they were released in the 90s or whatever. Those two were good. I enjoyed them. One more than the other. I liked Bordello of Blood a lot more than Demon Knight, but still. I'm also wondering, because Demon Knight, I know, definitely had some notable actors in it. It had Billy Zane and Jada Pinkett Smith, right? I don't remember if Bordello of Blood had any really notable actors in it, but I'm wondering if this one does. Now, mind you, this came out in the 70s, so even if it does, I might not recognize them. It's possible. But I'm very interested to see, nonetheless. So, how about we just get into this and see what we have in store? I think that sounds like a good idea. Let's do it. Hold up just a sec. Before you click that link down in the description below to get to today's video, I want to remind you of all the awesome content we have both on this channel and the Princess of Gaming channel. Let's check it out. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So I looked things up, and yeah, apparently the Crypt Keeper did change at a very specific point. In the comics, in the original comics, the Crypt Keeper started out basically like we see here. This sinister, intimidating, very serious kind of figure, but evolved into more comedic and started making like more puns and stuff down the line. The Crypt Keeper that I think of when I think of the Crypt Keeper from Tales from the Crypt is the one that debuted in the 1989 HBO series. So that's why he wasn't in this movie as like the puppet version, because that just literally didn't exist yet. This was going by the original Crypt Keeper design and style, while the puppet came in later on for this show, and just became like the iconic Crypt Keeper that everybody knows. I didn't know that. I didn't know that the Crypt Keeper had changed designs and style. I didn't know that like that only the Crypt Keeper we know only started with the original or the '89 series. I didn't know any of this. But yeah, it is pretty interesting. I did know that there was a 1990s cartoon version, where the Crypt Keeper was like slightly changed in design because of apparently the original would be seen as like a little too scary for children because of the decaying corpse design. But still, as for this movie, which, predates the Crypt Keeper we know by almost 20 years, Jesus. Because this came out in 72. This is it is an anthology, like I typically think of, and it's very much what I tend to think of in terms of like Tales from the Crypt kind of thing. It's like this kind of like pretty mature, I would say, horror anthology thing. It's not like Goosebumps or like anything like that. It is more mature. It is more dark. It does touch on some really fucked up situations and circumstances. Even if the murders and deaths aren't like shown on screen, you do see like the aftermath of them, and there is some blood and gore and everything. So they have some creative ways of getting around that too, like having like the one dude die when the newspaper's over his face, and at first you just see the blood coming through the paper. It's like there's some creative ways of getting around it. And the lights turning out in that last one, right before the dog mauls him to death out of hunger. It's like it's like kind of representing that now his life was in the dark before his death, like the one blind guy who died because of his actions was. So that's pretty ironic. Male person. But let's talk about all of these. So I guess we'll start with the framing device, which is just all of these people are on a tour in the catacombs. They end up coming upon this secret room where they meet the Crypt Keeper, who starts to deliver these basically tells them like, oh, what are you doing like after you leave here, and let's show you some visions and stuff that's going to spook you a little bit. In the end, though, at the final part we see this, it's revealed that this stuff did already happen, which makes sense because the brooch thing. That was the one thing that was like kind of throwing me off, because I wasn't sure, because they kept saying it's like, oh no, I'm going to go and I'm going to do this. They're acting like they haven't done this stuff yet. And so I'm like kind of being led to think it's like, oh, these are visions of what will happen to them if they don't change their ways or whatnot. But then it's revealed, but then she has the brooch already. The brooch that like her husband gave her for Christmas in the vision. And so I'm like, that just doesn't add up though. And so I'm confused during most of this until the very end when it's like, oh no, you're in hell. It's like, I don't know why I didn't think of that. The funny thing is, Tales from the Hood, kind of did this same thing. And Tales from the Hood is obviously an anthology horror thing just like this. Probably directly inspired by this, I would say. Um, and it had this same thing where in the first one, well, actually in the second one too. I've only seen the first two, but it's like the first one though specifically. It's like this group of people. They're coming. They're talking to the dude, and he's like giving them these stories and everything. And then at the end, it reveals, oh, they've actually already been dead the entire time, and this dude is Satan. And so it's like it has to be directly inspired um, by this movie, which Tales from the Crypt, Tales from the Hood, it makes sense. Tales from the Hood just tackles specifically a lot of racial topics and whatnot that need to be touched on, even in the modern day, which take that as you will. I think that kind of sucks that we still have to touch on these topics. Racism is unfortunately still alive, but that's not the point here. The point here is in this one, we have these segments showing all these awful people, these five terrible people, and the terrible things that they've done. And there's differing degrees on how terrible they are. I would say that two of them are actively worse than the others. And that would be the rich asshole who ended up, being the cause of Mr. Crimsdyke's suicide. And then this guy at the end. I can't remember his name right now, but, he's literally at cause for one of these blind men's deaths. And was really not that repentant about it. Really didn't give a shit. So, yeah. But let's go through all these. I have the list up here of all of them. So the first one is And All Through the House. This is the Christmas one. We focus on this one with Joanne Clayton, who is played by Joan Collins. And she, on Christmas Eve, kills her husband for the insurance payout. It's a tale as old as time. The insurance scheme payout is a very common trope. And, I mean, mind you, this came out in 72, so maybe it wasn't as common back then. I'm actually not sure exactly when that really became a big trope. But either way, she has to, like, calm her daughter, keep her from, like, seeing her husband's corpse and everything. And at the same time, she deals with the fact that there's a serial killer out and about, dressed as Santa. Well, as she's getting rid of, like, not just getting rid of her husband's body, but making it look like he had fallen down the stairs, though, with the way she killed him, I really don't think that would have worked. Like, she pretty much stabbed him through the head, right? It's like, or something similar to that, with the fire poker, right? It's like, how are you going to explain that? In terms of, like, him falling down the stairs. That doesn't really make sense. But either way, she sets that up, and when she comes back up, she ends up noticing that the curtain is open and that her daughter's door is open. So she's trying to find her daughter, who she clearly does still care about. It's just her husband, I guess, she hated. And ends up finding out that her daughter let in Santa. And so Santa, the serial killer, ends up strangling her to death. The brooch that she had gotten was was basically her husband's last Christmas present to her prior to everything happening. We saw at the very beginning of this segment that he was like really happy and really like joyful about giving her this gift. So it seemed like he was probably a good dude. It didn't seem like he was like abusive or like she had no reason to necessarily hate him from what we could tell. she just wanted the insurance money. She was just a greedy, selfish bitch. And it really sucks because, like, now her daughter will be out both of her parents. Like, she's now an orphan. And that's, like, really fucked up. It's like, because of your actions, you made your, like, what, like, 8-year-old daughter? Like, she definitely looks like she's no older than 8. You made her an orphan. And it's just like, Jesus, you are a selfish bitch. And the funny thing is, they had a very wealthy house. Like, this was not a poor family. They were well off. I'm not saying like they were the richest out there, but the fact that they were well off and she was still selfish and greedy enough to try this insurance scam to get more money from her dead husband, it's like, Jesus fuck, you are just terrible. This one, the death of both the husband and her were kind of to me. I wasn't super, like, thrown off by either of them, though I do, like I said, I do praise the creativity of how they handled the newspaper shot with killing him. But, like, her death, just being strangled to death by a serial killer dressed as Santa, it's like, come on, I've seen Terrifier 3. If I'm going to see a serial killer dressed as Santa killing someone, I want it to be cool. I don't want that. But in all seriousness, it's like, it was just very bland to me. But again, I'll give creativity points to the way she killed her husband just because of the newspaper shot. I think that was a creative way of handling censorship in a way. The next one we had, though, was Reflection of Death. And this one, I would say, is probably one of the least bad of these people. I'm not saying he's not bad, but one of the least so. So this focuses on a guy named Carl who just decides to abandon his wife and children and just leave home to end up running away with his mistress. And infidelity is obviously bad, but compared to some of the other crimes and issues we see with these people in this film, it's honestly the least bad of all of these, if we're being completely honest here. It's bad, especially considering he has 2 children that he was leaving behind as well. But it's not as bad as some of this other stuff. But either way, so Carl and, what's her name? I should have this here. Susan. Carl and Susan leave, and they're planning on, like, completely moving away to somewhere further out. They're completely leaving the area so that they can completely start fresh. I'm saying completely a lot. They want to start fresh, and so they're moving out. Like, she's even got her furniture moved out. They end up getting in a car crash because he gets drowsy while driving. They end up switching. She starts driving. And then after he has a nightmare and wakes up screaming, she gets distracted and, like, almost gets hit by a truck. When he tries to take the wheel to swerve out of the way, they end up crashing, and he seems to be the only survivor coming out of the car, though Susan is nowhere to be seen at all. So he starts to try to find his way around, but every person he comes across just screams when they see his face, though we're not seeing it at that time. We're just seeing him from, like, a first-person perspective. He eventually makes his way back to Susan's old apartment, where he finds that she's still there. I don't know why he went there if he didn't think she would be there, but maybe just instinct, but she's still there. And he's surprised to see that her furniture is back. She explains to him that the accident, she survived but was left blind, which is why she doesn't have a reaction to his face and all. But he died. So he realizes he's dead. He looks in the reflection of the table to see that he's a zombie, and then wakes up. He's in the car, and this was the nightmare he had. It kind of loops back to that, which is actually pretty fun. It loops back to that, and then they actually do get into the car crash, and presumably the same thing happens. So he basically saw a vision of his death, except, obviously the zombie thing wouldn't have happened. So that's pretty crazy. So he just got in a car crash, which during the crash we do see his head like shaking and bashing around, and so yeah, it's it's really as simple as that. It's just a car crash. It's nothing spectacular. Just like with her death before being choked out by a serial killer, it's not really anything special, not really anything interesting. It's a very milquetoast death, but the nightmare sequence of him being a zombie and everything is pretty cool. I'll give you that. The zombie reveal was also really well done. Even though it's like obviously we knew something was wrong, something was bad, it was still a good reveal. And to find out it had been 2 years as well is pretty crazy. That's pretty wild too. That he woke up 2 years later. The next segment though was Poetic Justice. And this one was probably the one that pissed me off the most, if I'm being honest. This is the one with James and Edward. James is the younger guy, the one who it's mostly focused on. Edward is his father, which I don't think it actually said that in the segment. I was unsure about their relationship. Because it's like, oh, he lives in this fancy ass home, and then the father's like, oh no, this is my home, basically, something like that. And it's like, oh, who is he then? Why is he there? He's his son. I didn't realize that. I don't think it actually said that unless I missed something, but either way, he's there with his father, and James is very particular about how the neighborhood looks. So much so that across the street, there lives an elderly man named Mr. Grimsdyke, and he's a nice old man. He likes to make toys for the neighborhood children. He has his dogs. He's got a nice little job. He's doing his best, and everything seems to be going well for him. But James doesn't like him because he refuses to sell his property, so that they can build it up and make it fit in more with the neighborhood. The problem is because he owns his house outright, they can't do anything. Even his father, even Edward, says, we're just shit out of luck. We have no options. And so James decides to have the idea to basically force Mr. Grimsdyke to sell by basically taking away everything that would give him a reason to stay. He he tears up another neighbor's flower garden and blames it on the dogs, so that the dogs are taken away. Except for one who comes back later, I guess, who was who had left beforehand. So he'd managed to keep one later on. But he then ends up telling all the mothers of the neighborhood not to let their kids hang out with him because he's dangerous and everything. His house is probably super dirty. And so the mothers take this to heart and refuse to let their children hang out with him anymore. And then on Valentine's Day, he ends up sending a bunch of cards from basically intended to be from everyone in the area, basically telling him how much they hate him and that he should go throw himself in the river. The taking the dogs and stopping the kids from visiting was bad to a lesser degree, but this shit crossed the line that just pissed me off you wouldn't believe. Telling a person that they should kill themselves already is a horrifically evil thing to do. But like the fact that after everything else that James had done to this man, it causes this man to be so broken by it that he does actually commit suicide. It's like once that was made clear that that had happened, my like rage instantly like sparked up to a degree where it's like I am just waiting for this dude to die. I am hoping that he has a horrifically terrible death. I just want him to be fucking murdered in the worst way. It as someone who has dealt with depression and who has attempted suicide, this kind of shit pisses me off more than anything. Well, maybe not more than anything, but pisses me off more than most things when someone in the first place wishes suicide on it, wishes someone would commit suicide. That really fucking pisses me off. But then also like the someone driving another person to suicide through such cruel, inhumane ways is so aggressively evil. Like there's just absolutely no supporting that. There's no way to see him as, redeemable. And I don't give a shit that he seemed like a year later to be repentant, that he seemed actually really fucked up by it. I don't give a shit. He doesn't get to feel fucked up. He doesn't get to feel repentant. He can fucking die like the cunt he is. And he did. Because Mr. Crimsdyke woke up as a zombie, came in and murdered James by literally ripping his heart out and writing a Valentine. Again, this is 1 year later, by the way. This is Valentine's Day. Writing a Valentine out of blood, out of James's blood, with his heart wrapped up in it. So fucking satisfying. He got so much of what was coming to him. He absolutely deserved that because he... Fuck him. And fuck anybody in real life who would ever even consider doing anything like this. And I know there are people who have done shit like this. God, it just... really, really don't like that. And don't get me wrong, it's not that I don't like the segment. The segment's well made and everything, and probably has the best gore effect of the movie. But it's just like... It just, like, pissed me off to a level that nothing else in this movie did. Which, I mean, I guess means it was effective. Like, it was not supposed to be something you should feel comfortable with. You're supposed to be upset by it. All of these people are terrible people, and you're supposed to see them all as terrible. But it's like, that was just so far above and beyond what everybody else had been doing, and it's just like... Yeah, this dude's like the worst of them. And then that makes it really cathartic that he did get the worst death in the end. Meanwhile, the next one we had was Wish You Were Here. And this is the monkey's paw one. Which, even directly references the monkey's paw. So we have this businessman who is like... he's basically either got to sell all of his shit or declare bankruptcy. He sees bankruptcy as something that's like dishonorable, so he doesn't want to do it. And so he is convinced to sell all of his stuff. But while talking it over with his wife, they end up like focusing on this statuette they bought in Hong Kong, because of course it's in Hong Kong. That's such a stereotype. It's such a like a stupid stereotype about like, Asian people. That's even been used in like Gremlins and whatnot, and it's just it's not okay. It's like, oh, we have this mystical, magical object. It must have been Asian. Must have got it from Hong Kong. It's like, that's fucked up. No. And I understand this movie was made in 72. I get it. But it's just like, it was not okay back then either. Um, it's uncomfortable. But either way, they start to read this inscription that's on it that I guess neither of them have really noticed before. And they realize that the statue can grant 3 wishes, and only 3. There is a warning at the bottom, but neither of them can read it. It's kind of like faded out and whatnot. So the wife makes a wish on the statue saying that she wishes they had a lot of money, a butt ton of money, a metric shit ton of money. Because they're, not doing well financially right now. And so what was it? What was his name? Ralph. Ralph ends up getting called in by his financial advisor. And on the ride there, he ends up being followed by someone who I guess was stalking him. Because he was at his house originally, too. The dude's on a motorcycle in a skull mask. And the fright of it causes him to, as we find out later, have a heart attack, which ends up causing him to, have an accident that kills him. Though he died from the heart attack, to be fair. But we don't know that right from the start. We think it's just a car crash. He dies from the car crash. The financial advisor ends up having to tell the wife this, and during it, he also mentions it's like, oh, well, there was a good insurance set up for him, so you're rich. Like, even presuming, like, paying off his debts and whatnot. It's like, you're rich, ma'am. And then she realizes pretty much instantly, it's like, oh, shit, I made this wish. It's like the monkey's paw and everything. And so she's talking to it with the financial advisor, who's like a family friend as well, I guess. And so she wishes for him to be... she wants to wish for him to be brought back, but they already figured it must be a monkey's paw thing, so you have to be careful about the wording. So she wishes he was brought back right before, in the state he was right before the accident. And so they bring back his preserved body in a casket. He's still dead because he died from the heart attack, as we find out at this point. His body was mutilated horrifically, but that was because of the accident. He was already dead by that point. So he is brought back in the state he was before the accident. He's still dead, but he's at least not mutilated. And so she tries to figure out a way to, like, bring him back to life afterwards. She, like, figures out the wording for it. And she wishes her third wish to bring him back to life, but unfortunately just does not think shit through. And bringing him back to life, she doesn't realize that it's like, oh, he's going to be brought back to life in the exact state he's in, which means his body is filled with formaldehyde and shit. His body has already been embalmed. He is going to be in hell. But on top of it, when she was making the wish, she also said she wished he would be brought back to life forever. And so the forever part ends up making him immortal. So, like, even if she tries to, like, chop him up and shit, he can't die. He's just immortally, like, in torture and pain for forever. And it's like, oh. And this dude was, like, a dirty businessman. He wasn't, like, anything, like, super terrible compared to some of these others. It's like, yeah, it implies he's done some, like, really bad things to, be successful. But it's like, there's worse people out there, all things considered. But yeah, his death isn't even really a death. Well, he does die. He dies from the heart attack. But then he's brought back and has to go through eternal torture and all, which kind of a little hint at what's to come for him, right? Considering they're in hell. And then the last one we had here was Blind Alleys. And so this one, we have military major William Rogers ends up getting a new job as the director for a home for blind people. And at first it's hard to see like what his big thing is going to be, what his issue is going to be here. But then we find out pretty quickly that he wants all this like great stuff for his office, all this great food for himself, but is otherwise budgeting on the rest of the institution. He's making it so that they have to shut off the heating at night. He makes it so that they have like really poor quality food. He's just taking away everything from them that he can. And all the while, he has this dog that is like protecting him from being confronted by the people in the institution, the blind men. So when his actions, when all of his cost cutting measures cause one of the blind men to become deathly ill and actually die from, the cold and the lack of proper nutrition and all the rest of the blind men in the house decide to take their revenge. They first have to lure the dog away, so they save up scraps of their food, which I think was just bacon or something from like that morning's breakfast. And later in the day, they plant it so that the dog will be able to chase it while the major isn't like paying attention. They lure the dog into a room in the basement and lock him in. They then confront the major and, working together, take him down to the basement, force him into another room next door, and lock him in as well. They keep him there. They keep him and the dog there for days. I'm so glad they didn't kill the dog. I was so worried they were going to kill the dog at first. They did not kill the dog. They did starve the dog for a few days, but, it's like it's better than killing the dog. Plus, the dog did get to eat in the end. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So while he's locked in there, they start constructing something. And we don't know what it is. We are not being shown at all what it is. Until, like, after all this time is up, suddenly the major's door opens. He goes out into the hall to find that he's been led in this alley, this constructed alley that they made, that at first leads just to a room across the hall. But the door is closed against him. He's not allowed to go through it. So he continues down the alley a different direction and finds a hall of razor blades. Now he's just trying to get out. He's trying to like escape from here. So he forces himself down the narrow hall of razor blades that starts cutting into his hand and everything until he reaches the other end. That leads to the door of the dog's room. The dog has been starving and is hungry, and yeah, they use a rope system to free the dog from the room, and turn out the lights right as it reaches the major, eating and killing him. And this one, not as much as the other with Mr. Crimsdyke. This one also pissed me off because, like, anyone who would take advantage of people who are, disabled to any degree, or, just, the disenfranchised in general, in order to, build themselves up. It's like this can be, like, referred to in many different cases. It's not just like, taking advantage of blind people. You can use this same kind of idea in, like, how even, like, the government takes advantage of the poorest people in America. It's like the government, like, gives themselves these huge salaries and gets all this, like, fancy shit, but then, like, there's so many poor people in this country who can't afford to live, and they're just taken advantage of and, forced to stay in this in this pain and suffering, and even constant cold, having to live outside a lot of the times from being homeless, and it can kill them. And so it's like this is obviously using a very specific example to represent this with the blind men being taken advantage of here, but the same kind of message can definitely relate to other situations. But yeah, anyone who would do something like that is an atrociously terrible person. Anyone who would take advantage of the the disenfranchised in order to boost themselves up, like, can fuck right on off. He deserved to get eaten like that. He deserved to get killed. It's like, absolutely. Fuck him. And I'm glad for these men who are able to stand up for themselves and take revenge on the Major for, literally causing one of their friends' deaths. And so this one was satisfying as well, and the way that they turned out the lights right before he died was also very ironically fitting. Um, it again wasn't like a super like unique or special kill, all things considered. The only kill in this that was actually really interesting was what was the zombie ripping James's heart out. Other than that, all the deaths were actually kind of lackluster. But mind you, it was the 70s, and they probably didn't have like the budget to do too much more than this, so probably couldn't have done much more creative kills. But yeah, it's like I think my favorite out of these, just in terms of like the one that got the most or made me the most invested in it, was probably Poetic Justice with Grimsdyke. The one that I think I liked the least would have probably been the first one, and All Through the House. Because I just felt it was a little, like, bland and boring compared to the others. Um, but overall, I think it was nonetheless, I think nonetheless it was, like, overall pretty fine. It's not, like, my favorite of the anthology horror films I've checked out. Um, Tales from the Hood is better, both of them. The second one especially, actually. The second Tales from the Hood is really good. Um, the VHS movies I've watched, I think I watched the first two of those, were better. And it's just like, I mean, a lot of it comes down to the time period. Again, this movie came out in 1972. It's like, yeah, to a degree, it's going to be pretty bland and pretty simplistic comparatively. And the acting was good. The acting and the filming and all of that was good. I had no issue with that stuff. My only real issue was the um the actual, like, kills. The stories weren't like the most amazing or most interesting. But like the acting, the actual way it was filmed and everything, the just the general quality of the movie is fine. I just have a few things that I feel like just don't really hold up to today's standards. That's all I'm saying. Um, but yeah, it's like this was worth the watch, and it educated me about the Crypt Keeper's history. So there's that. It's just the tone was also very serious as well, and I think that did affect my enjoyment of it a little bit, because I went into this expecting more of the puppet Crypt Keeper and everything, and that kind of tone. Kind of like the tone we got in Bordello of Blood and Demon Knight, where it's a little more silly, a little more like cheesy and whatnot. Instead, again, it was much more serious, much more thematic and focused, and that's fine. It wasn't bad. It just was not what I came into this like thinking it was going to be, and that did affect my views of it a little bit. Not enough to like really hurt it, but enough to where it's like it did just affect my overall like thoughts. Yeah. um. So yeah, I definitely I'm glad I saw it. I mean, I definitely don't regret having watched it, but let me know what you think in the comments below. What do you think of this movie? Did you know that the Crypt Keeper only like became the puppet in the 80s? Did you know that Tales from the Crypt was originally comics? Let me know your thoughts on this. Let me know like what your favorite of these segments was. And for now, I'm Connie and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.